All right, Samantha, welcome. Thanks for being a panelist with me today. I'm Jen Hernandez, Legacy Mutual Mortgage, Loan with Jen. Sam, you are a profit coach. So tell us about you and let's get going.
Okay. Hi, guys. I'm Sam Varner. It says Samantha, but we go Sam pretty quickly. And I am a profit coach. So I help clients make the money they intended to make when they started their business. So we're going to chat a little bit about profit strategy today. Okay. So we're going to learn a little bit about swapping your money story. So working with what you're currently doing with your money in business, and then switching it out for some new thoughts that are going to help you with your profit. We're going to touch on some weekly action strategies that are going to help you hit those revenue goals. So making sure that the actions you're setting yourself up for in 2022 are actually going to translate into more business and more money, which of course is critical. And then we're going to talk a little bit about task management, time management that will help you move the needle, because it is easy for all of us to get bogged down in the work product of a business and not necessarily doing the things that move the needle forward. So we're gonna work on those and give you some things to think about moving forward.
So I am Jen Hernandez. I don't think I can be seen right now, but there I am on the screen. So I've been in the business quite a while. 100% based referral business. I'm super passionate about bringing guest speakers or teaching myself classes that are going to just help our business and realtor community thrive and have a great business. So that's the point of today. So thanks for being on. And then you've got mine and Sam's information at the bottom of each slide, so you can contact us anytime. All right, Sam, tell us about you.
Okay, so who is Sam, and why can I help you with these sorts of issues in your business? I've spent 14, probably closer to 15 years now working in financial services, working with business owners in various different ways of dealing with their money, dealing with promotion and sales and marketing. And at the end of the day, for a business, those things are so critical. And really, if you can nail each one of those categories, it will lead to your success. I have my certified financial planner. I've gone through quite a bit of financial coach training. So I have some experience in all of the things that might be causing you some challenges. I also have just launched my podcast, She Needs Grit. So if you're looking for something where it's a quick dose of what can I do to move forward in my business right away, go check me out on all of the places you can find a podcast. And then at the end of the day, my big goal is to make sure that business owners turn into CEOs of their own business, as opposed to being in the employee position. We all have to do work in our business, but being the CEO and having that bird's eye view to be able to build your business forward is really critical. And that's what I help clients do.
Awesome. So you work with people, I think we were talking, you work with people like, sometimes it's just a couple months, sometimes it's 6 months. It just depends on what they need, right?
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, it is. For the most part, my clients now are 6-month terms. Here and there, I'll help somebody if they've just got one very pointed question, and we can just deep dive into that. But for the most part, it's 6 months where we just look at all the pieces of your business and tweak where needed to just streamline things a little bit.
Okay, great. All right, time and money.
Yes, critical things. So let's talk about this a little bit. I know that in my experience dealing with business owners, the goal of starting a business for the most part was that you wanted to create more time freedom for yourself. So you wanted to be able to take holidays when you wanted. You didn't want to be dependent on a boss saying, yes, you could, no, you couldn't. You wanted to be able to be available for your kids. And just generally have control over your time in a way that you don't have when you have kind of the traditional job, right? The other piece is always we start businesses because we're pretty sure we can make money, right? We can make more money than what we've made thus far in our jobs. And we believe that we can do it in a way that will help people in whatever niche that we're going to help them with, right? What I find though is when we're kind of around the room in this discussion, so often I get people that kind of look down or they're like, because they are actually working way more hours in their business than what they intended, or even maybe what they did when they were at their job. And they're not necessarily making the money that they thought they would make. So what I want to help you do today is really work towards that dream vision of the entrepreneur that you wanted to be, as opposed to sometimes the thing that we get stuck in, which is working really hard, never turning it off, always being on for our clients and for our business, but not actually seeing the rewards of that, right? So we want to talk about that. And I think the most important thing is to make your business plan more simple, right? A lot of us do too many things all the time to try and generate new revenue, where with a little simplicity and some exceptionally well done tasks, you can see a difference.
Okay. So do you, Sam, and I don't know why my camera's not working, but I'm here. And those of you that are here, just feel free to chat a question. I am monitoring that. So when you first start working with someone, you look at where they're spending their money now, and where, I'm assuming, where they can cut, what's necessary, what's urgent, what's not urgent. So like for a small business owner, is that generally what you go through?
That's part of it. So that's a big part of it. But also I look at what they're doing. So what tasks are they doing? What time is being spent in terms of, as we talked at the beginning, the move the needle actions. Are they spending time doing things that really should be either outsourced or streamlined in a way that doesn't take all of their time? As well as absolutely going deep into what are you spending your money on? What do those expense line items look like? And are they necessary for running your business, or is it just stuff that you've fallen into over the time of building your business?
And do you do just personal expenses? I mean, will you dive into their personal stuff as well, or you just do with business?
For the most part, I deal with business, but oftentimes I will find, depending on where they're at in their kind of experience in business, sometimes that personal money and that business money is still a little bit interwoven. So there is sometimes me helping them just take the business and move it right away from the personal money so that they can see a picture of exactly what's happening in the business and not have it all tied together. So that is sometimes part of what we do. I don't often dive into whether or not your expenses at home are working really well, but we do talk about things around how much money do you need to make to keep your household running, right? Like to keep the lights on, to keep the roof over your head. How much money does your business need to generate that goes home to be able to keep you happy and clothed and fed? So
you can almost help clients like reverse engineer it pretty much. Okay, gotcha. Now, if they're doing tasks, so it sounds like you work with them also on kind of their task management, like the duties that they're doing. So like if it identifies like, hey, you make this much an hour, you can have someone for a third of that do these tasks. Do you help them find somebody? Do you point them in the right direction of finding help, or like, how do you help them with that? Or do you? I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I really do help them with the decision of when it's time to get help, right? So it's the identifying, we don't need to be doing all of these tasks, and here's some ideas of where to look. So I definitely don't help them find the human that will help, but I will point them in the direction of the resources that I have and that I know of from my, my network that might be appropriate, or just, I have a lot of clients that then have gone on to use these VAs or these people. And so I will often bring that in so that they can have some idea of who they could help.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Awesome.
Okay. So talking about back to that overarching of like, you want to be the CEO of your business. And in order to do that, this is, Jen, exactly to your point, right? This is exactly where we have to decide is my time worth being spent on the things that I'm spending it on right now? Or is it necessary to get an employee or a subcontractor to help me do these tasks while I need to be out selling my business, right? I need to be out being the face of the business. I need to be networking. I need to be engaging with potential new customers, where the the order fulfillment in whatever way that looks like for your business, some of those pieces can be outsourced. And that's really important. And I think a lot of business owners delay that choice because they feel like I don't have enough money or I'm not confident enough to hire a full-time employee. And the reality of where we are now in the world means you don't need to hire a full-time employee, right? It isn't always the best. And generally speaking, at the beginning of a business, it's probably not where you're going to start. You're going to start with outsourcing some VA, there's so many virtual assistants out there with massive skill in all areas. You can really find somebody in that way to help you for just a minimum amount of hours.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you want to go to the next slide?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is something where it often, when we're talking, and you guys can shout out if this is something that you're like, ooh, this speaks to me a little bit. The expensive hobby or a business. I think it's really important to continually be assessing, are we creating a business where there are sales that is running and funding itself? Or do we have a business where we're continuing to build it, but it is really just a hobby? We're putting a lot of personal money in to back this business, and it's not necessarily turning around and providing for us personally. Does anybody in the comments feel like they started their business or they've been in that stage in business in terms of maybe an expensive hobby at the beginning? Anybody in there? No?
Let me let you know.
Okay, let me know as we go.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I try and do is I talk a lot about the book Profit First. So Mike McLeod's, I'm just going to grab it. I have it right here. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good book, by the way.
It is a great book. It is really worth the read. I don't know if you guys can see this because I can't see my.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I can see you.
Perfect. Okay, so this book is phenomenal. It is something where it will allow you to look differently at how you run your numbers and how you look at the finance in your business. And I highly recommend it's worth the read. And if not, you're always welcome to give me a shout and say, hey, can you give me the Coles Notes version? And we'll have a conversation about it specifically in relation to your business. But Jen, if you go to the next slide.
Okay.
Okay. So this is one of the biggest parts of Mike's book, is talking about reframing how you look at your money in your business and how you look at your available funds to run your business. So the pretty traditional, and most people are going to be doing this, is the top line. So you've got your revenue, your money coming in, minus your expenses for your money going out, and whatever remains becomes profit. And the downside to this is that, generally speaking, there's very little left after that equals sign, right? It's the dribs and drabs that is left, if any, in your business. And it makes some of the things that we've already talked about. It makes the idea of, I spend a lot of time in my business. I am working really hard. I'm not seeing any return on this business. Those things don't feel good if you're not generating yourself a profit. If you're generating yourself a profit at the beginning of a business, it's hard work. We all know this. We know that there's going to be time needed to dedicate to building a business. But without a profit line in your finances, it makes it really frustrating. So Mike's recommendation, and what I talk to all my clients about, is I want you to look at it differently. I want you to consider the second line. So where we've got revenue, so your money's coming in minus your profit, which when we start this process, it's often a percentage, right? So, and it's going to start as a small percentage. If you're an established business right now, I'm not going to come in and say to you, we are going to scrap all your expenses, because that's going to make it really hard to do business the way that you set it up currently. What I am going to ask of you is to say, how much profit would you like to make? And let's work gradually to building that percentage. So every time you get an invoice from a client paid, that percentage, so call it 10%, call it 5%, comes right off and goes into your owner's profit every time.
If I get, so if we get paid, let's say just we get paid $1,000. So you take 10% and put it away as profit. But what if So what do you do when someone's expenses are more than that? Like sometimes it takes a few months before, like sometimes there's just not many left over. I guess that's where, when you're looking at their expenses, to be like, hey, we got to cut some stuff, right?
That's it, right? That's when you really start to streamline your expenses. And then what you want to do is build a business where the expenses are what's left after profit. And that's the bucket of money that you have to run the business. And you can do it that way. It is just, it's a different way than what most people do their money. But the reality is kind of like a household. I often use this example where at home, you only have so much money coming in. And so you can only have expenses unless you're going to run a deficit every single month. You can only have so many expenses until you run out of money. That's how I want you to do your business. I want you to take that profit and pretend it's like, it's mandatory funding. So the revenue in, then it's mandatory funding goes over here, and your expenses is you work with what you have remaining. And it might mean trimming that budget and making it fit. And that can be done over time, right? If you're starting a brand new business, it's a great way to start off from the very get-go, because you don't ever go, your expenses can be exactly as you control them as you build. But if not, we can go and whittle away until it works so that you're generating some profit in your business.
I mean, especially because, I'm in 100% in the loan business. I work with a lot of realtors too. So, a realtor might have 1 or 2 closings one month and then nothing for another month, and then have 3 or 4 the next month. It's up and down.
It is.
How do you help stabilize that?
Well, ideally what that profit account is going to do is give you a little bit of a cushion, right? And that's not the only cushion, especially for realtors or businesses that are very cyclical in the income. You really want to work towards having a big buffer where it means that the expenses on those months where you're not getting a closing are not coming from various different places that they shouldn't be, like credit cards and things, right? So we want to get ourselves to the position where on the months that we do really well, there is some buffer being pulled out to prepare for what we know inevitably is going to be the months that aren't as profitable, right?
Yeah, and really, I would assume also getting a 3-month reserve, like whatever your business expenses are, getting how many months reserves do you suggest? 3 months, 6 months?
I generally, if somebody comes to me and they have none, we start with 3 because it feels like a doable number. And then I will just continue to help them build that, right? The biggest thing is, right, if you have nothing right now in reserve and you are playing this game of high months, low months, high months, low months, that can be incredibly stressful. And it also puts a lot of pressure on a sale, right? You have a lot of pressure on all the ducks lining up so that sale comes through. And by creating that buffer, even if it takes you 7 or 8 months to build that little buffer, you will feel so much better. And to be honest, it will directly impact your ability to sell, because then you're not selling from that place of desperation and graspiness, which we put out into the world when we're trying to sell things. So we do work towards that as we work together for sure.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I think I was going to do this part. I
think you are. You're up.
I know. I'm not seeing myself. This is the weirdest thing. I don't know why this is happening.
Funny. I can see you, but
only you can see me. I don't know what the people can see. Give me a second. I'm just gonna. Well, if you can see me, then that's good. Maybe other people can see me. Okay. So what is your financial goal for 2022? So something that I've really helped people over the years do, especially realtors, because I work a lot with realtors, is work their metrics backwards. So I've been, for 10 years, I've been a business coach for a company called The Core Training that coaches top lenders and realtors nationwide. So I started coaching with them 11 years ago. And actually, for 9 years, I've been coaching for them. So I get to see people on the beginning end, right? Usually lenders that are they're kind of successful by accident, but they're really just a train wreck. But I love it because I love to help them get on a budget and work with the numbers backwards. So I think, like you said, establishing your metrics and figuring out just using simple numbers. Like if your living expenses are $5,000 a month, like let's say you wrote down line by line, like literally even your Starbucks have it. Like I would write down your expenses, everything right now that you have, including the stuff that's like to live your life. Like,
Yeah.
I get my hair done at a guy that charges too much money. I buy products from him instead of on Amazon, even though I know it's a little more because he's my guy. He's done my hair for like 26 years. So I've got stuff I could easily cut. So, but I start with living my life exactly as it is so I can see where some of the waste is. I don't know if that's smart or not, and then I work backwards. I'm like, okay, 40% for tax, depending on what tax bracket you're in, you've got to kind of up your number. So if let's say your living expenses are $5,000 a month. Well, you've also got tax and stuff on top of that. So we'll get there in a second, but I definitely want to save 20% a month. And I want to also give away, I'm starting with 5%, but so depending on where you want your money to go, you've got to reverse engineer it, like you said, to be like, okay, what do I need to make per month to save 20%, to have my 5,000 in expenses? So, I mean, honestly, the 5,000 in expenses, really, let's see, if taxes is 40% for me anyway, savings is 20, giving is 5. That means my living expenses, that's 65. That needs to be 35%, right? So I'm going to take $5,000 divided by 35%. I need to make $14,285 a month. So really, I'm just going to round it up to 15. I like to round up. I'm going to say 15,000. Yeah. So to make 15,000, if you make $3,000 average per deal, I don't know, you have to use whatever number it is to you, right? So if you make average 3,000 per deal, you need to close 5 deals. And I haven't even included in here, once you get an assistant, like what I have not included in here is business expenses, right? So like for every dollar that you make, but I'm just kind of showing y'all how to take the percentages. What do you suggest? Actually, this is a question, Sam, for business expenses as a percent of what you have as a gross. What's your suggestion?
That's that number is hard to come up with only because I deal with so many different business owners, but different business types that have much heavier expenses than others. But let's say, I think you should be like.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I deal a lot with realtors, and mostly realtors are on this panel. So I would say that you don't 40, have an office space, 40%.
Yeah, 40 to 45, depending on how big you are as a realtor and how much help you have. So once you get human help, that I would say would bump you closer to the 45.
So if I need to
if you're a standalone realtor that is just doing all the back end work, then somewhere in that 35, 37, 40, somewhere in there should be a doable number.
Let's just use 40. And that 40% would include any staff, any expenses you have to pay to your broker for, copies or office space, all of that, whatever, all the marketing, any kind of, if you pay a social media company to do your social media for you, it would all be included in paper, print, mail outs,
boxes, signage, all the bits. Yeah.
So let's say 40%. So in that number, I just figured out that I need to make $15,000 net, like taxable money, to pay my taxes, save 20%, give away to charity. So that 15,000, I need to increase by 40%, right? So I have to take 15,000 that I want 15 as my profit.
Yeah.
So that I can do all those other things. And so I'm going to times that by 1.40. I'm going to increase it by 40%. So I really need to gross 21,000. So if my average per deal, let's say it was $3,000, and I'm just making this up, okay? You're going to figure out what your average commission per thing is. I've got to close 7 deals. So
and
that's
those numbers are
engineer it.
Yeah, exactly. And those numbers are a little bit with the taxes, like there's a little bit of manipulating that can be done there, but I agree, Jen, like definitely just estimating high and having extra is a far better scenario than, oh dear, something has to.
And not everybody's in the 40% tax bracket. So
Absolutely.
and the tax brackets are going to change. I actually have a meeting with my tax guy after this. So I'm bracing myself. Let's just put it that way. But anyway, and then activities to meet your metrics. So one thing that I'm also really good at is padding how much you need to make. Okay. So if I need to close 7 for the example that we just used, I need to get in contract or close, however you book your business, right? For me, it's a loan lock. So if I need to close 7, I need to really probably lock 11 or 12 because so if I need to lock 12, I know that because there's fallout, y'all. Like if you've got
there is
fallout, I don't care what business you're in, the person changes their mind, they have whatever. I mean, just when you think it's going to close, it doesn't. Okay. I actually had a client pass away this year. It was so sad, but something can happen. Okay. So you book more than you need. So if you need to close 7, and like you said, over pad, because the worst that can happen is that you close 8 or 9 instead of 12. So I'm actually been padding more with our economy. I just find that in real estate, it really more is falling out. I'll be honest with you, because of whether it's an appraisal or whatever have you. So that being said, you see how we're working back, like with what Sam said, the financial part of it and how much you need to live. We got to figure out how much you need to live. How much truly are your business expenses? If you're running super lean and you're doing it for less than 40%, well, hey, that's amazing, right? But that's what averages are for, to know how to plan backwards. And then the activities to meet your metrics. So then you would go, okay, I've got to lock or put 12 into title. I've got to book 12. How do I book 12? So you deal with a lot of businesses, Sam, so you can correct me if it's different in different ones, but I think a 25% closure ratio from any lead or however you get your prospects, closing 1 out of 4 is a very acceptable in my business with lending. And I'm 100% referral. I don't deal with online leads or any of that. So if they do come from me online, they already know me through like Facebook, friend of a friend. So I consider that a warm lead. So I'm 1 in 4 right now. So I'm 25%. So if you need 25%, so if you need to lock 12, you take 12 and you divide it by 25%, you need to get 48 prospective customers. Let's just, again, round it up to 50, or 48 is actually divisible by 4. I like to take the monthly and I like to divide it into a weekly. I just think it's easier to like track your activity for that week. So 48 is divisible by 4. So I'm going to leave it as 48. So 48 divided by 4 is 12. So I need 12 prospects per week. So where am I going to get those? I mean, ideally, if I had 12 referral partners, it'd be great if they referred me once a week, but that's not realistic, right?
No, probably not.
Then you reverse engineer it and just say, hey, where are my main sources of business? So I generally and again, this applies to any business. Like, it does not matter what your business is. Don't have all your eggs in one basket. So
For sure.
past clients is fantastic, though they actually close a higher percent, by the way, than all this other stuff that we do. Past clients for me close like 45% of the time. I track it pretty heavily in the last 6 or 7 years. I get business from realtors because they have the most direct contact to people that are buying houses. And then I also have business people like you that are in my sphere. So you've got to have, just like you've got to have more booked business than what you need to close because of fallout. Well, it's the same with referral partners. So if you need 48 leads in a month, I would say you need 3 times that, maybe 4 times that in referral partners, depending on your, referral partner. Like a past client isn't going to refer you every single month. So at any given time, that's where on the side, you guys can contact me. I'm really good at the database part. I have a very organized way to keep my database, but that's what I'm really, really good at. And so, having the business from these different sources, and maybe you advertise, maybe you do, but I dare to say that we all want more warm leads, right? Like people that know us, networking groups, that kind of thing. And that's how I met you, was a networking group where we know each other and we see each other face to face once a month. And, we're more apt to be top of mind, right? And refer each other. So those activities to meet your metrics, I would suggest that you take your yearly number, then you build it down monthly like we did. Remember, you got to pay taxes, people. So figure that out. Figure out what your true business expenses are. We could be super off on the 40%, right? Like, I don't know. And then I'm really just rinse and repeat. Like, it's interesting, and I'll end my part with this, is that I catch myself sometimes doing new things. I'm really good at starting new ideas. That's actually, it's good, but it's also kind of a downfall. And when I look at my metrics, I'm like, wait a minute, my past clients they're like converting 45% of the time. My other stuff is converting a little less. So it all kind of averages out to 25. Okay. 25%, 1 in 4. But like, why start a bunch of new things? Why don't I just put my energy towards this pillar of business, still have the other things, but like sometimes it's right in front of us. And so having consistent methods between call, write, online, digital media, like email campaigns, events, like maybe you have a biannual party or something, like whatever it is that you do, you've got to do a little bit of all of it, because not everybody responds to not everyone's reading my mailer. Okay. Some just throw in the trash. I get it. Not everyone's opening my email. So I also throw a little bit of text in there, right? So you've got to have a few different methods, but just be consistent about whatever you're doing. And then just let it ride, just rinse and repeat. And then, add things as you think they're going to bring value. But that's how I do it as far as meeting the financial goals. And then, doing it within that 40%, that's always a challenge. I like to add stuff on, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I got all this stuff going. So that's kind of my downfall. So fun. Would you have anything, that you want to add? And we'll just kind of wrap it up.
Yeah. And I think that just goes right back to the very beginning of simplicity is generally the best way to do things, right? If you are contemplating starting a new thing, right, to add to the repertoire of ways you're contacting new people, I want you to always consider, what is the end goal for that thing that you're going to start? How much time is it going to take out of your day or out of your assistant's day? How much commitment do you have to do? And how long would you expect for it to take to start generating the sort of revenue that you're expecting, or the number of leads from it that you're expecting? And the more you get into that pattern of evaluating those things and then fitting them in where they fit, because there's something to be said for a new and fresh idea along with the tried and true. I do that too. I'm a great starter, and then I've gotten much better at reining myself in a little bit and helping my clients rein in on that. But if you look at it very much from a business perspective and not so much from a shiny object perspective, sometimes we get down that like, oh, but she's doing it and that seems to be working for her. But we don't see the back end of what that has to look like to make it work. So I just encourage you to, I agree, Jen, with you so much. Look at where your business is currently coming from and double down on what you're already excellent at and where you're already creating business, and then add pieces in on purpose, strategically at certain points in your year when it fits your available time and it fits your CEO plan of what you're trying to do and build long term, right? A good example of that is me starting the podcast. I don't have an expectation that that podcast is going to bring into me droves of new clients immediately, because that's silly. It has to build some momentum and get in front of a bunch of people, but it's a long game marketing plan. And some of those ones are excellent to try, but you just need to know you're not depending on it to do something for you month 2, right? So that's
that's really important too. I just feel like, in this extremely digital age. In fact, I just taught something about online marketing a couple of days ago. So that'll be actually on my YouTube channel soon, on online marketing. And I was brainstorming and masterminding with some other people. And you've got to have a little bit of those things because you don't know what your audience is into.
Right.
So I just made the decision, I'm not really going to continue Twitter. We've been posting on Twitter and it's just like noise, right? I know there's just some positive, negative. We said, okay, we're going to pull that, but I am actually going to start a podcast too, just because I think that, yay. In fact, you can be a guest on mine and I'll be a guest on yours. Because that's a way that I can give back to my business people. And there's some people that are just at it. They just listen to podcasts all the time, right? So just like with the direct mail, some don't do the mail, but they text or they look at an email. So you've got to have, sprinkle a little bit of all of it.
Yeah.
And do it consistently. So it's interesting. And the next thing I'll say, I'll get Lisa on. She says, I love podcasts.
I love it, Lisa. Me too.
I really believe, and I'd be interested in your take on this. I think that it takes from the time that you start to plant seeds, I think it's 190 to 103 to 4 months.
Yep.
Is what I think. So when you're working with people and they need to reverse engineer and try something new and say, okay,
yeah.
I mean, I think it takes that long. Like what you're doing today, I mean, that's your February. Like that's your February, March, right?
That is exactly it. And I often will say to clients, and some of my clients, I'm thinking of a couple in particular right now, they always come to me and they're like, I've got this new thing. And I'm like, okay, great. You have to do it for 90 days. Are you committed? And it's like, and the reality is you have to do it for 90 days to see if it even takes, to see if the content is what your audience is looking for, if the ways that you're promoting that content is getting picked up, right? You have to, it's all about the metrics. And I know sometimes we get bogged down, we get busy with client work, and obviously doing the stuff you need to do for client work comes first. But it really requires you to back end into some of these metrics on all sorts of different areas of your business so that you can be kind of like playing the chess game of like, well, I'm going to move this one a little and see what happens. And you start to be able to predict what's going to work. And that starts to be able to create a faucet where you can be turning on and off clients. You can turn on and off the money in your business once you get that calculation really correct, right? Once you have that series of moves that you can really build, but you need to take the time to build that strategy right from the beginning, or, right from day one, and then commit to it for long enough to give it a chance to show you what it can do.
Yeah, I think the commit, like I started with a social media company actually to help me with that. And I fully expect, I'm like, all right, I'm in it for 6 months. Like this, I mentioned that the seeds that you're planting, that'll start to generate, or should, if it's working, in 3 months, right? But I'm always, when I go into something and I'm thinking, okay, am I going to spend money on this?
Mm-hmm.
That's usually, of course, when it's new, I always say in my head, I say, okay, I'm going to do it for 6 months, because that's how long you really need to make sure that, like, it's starting in month 3, right? And then it's going to consistently start working. So that's been, my experience. It sounds like it's yours as well.
Absolutely.
We do have, I think we have a question. Oh, yep. Another one loves podcasts. She's going to be listening to you. Yes. Love let's see. She Needs Grit, right? That's
She Needs Grit podcast, and you can find it on all of the places.
Yeah, awesome.
No matter how you listen.
Well, I've enjoyed really having you. I think I hope we've given some good nuggets to those that are watching, of just giving them some talking points, some things to think about.
Yeah.
If you need help with your budgeting and really working that backwards, definitely call Sam. I think she could be a great, great resource for many people. And thank you for being on today. I really super appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is great. And absolutely, please reach out, even if you just have a question that you wanted to ask and you didn't want to throw it out on the chat. I'm happy to have that conversation with you too. So if you want to just get some clarity, then shout it out, send it over to me, and I will respond right away.
Yeah, gotcha. And I'll be posting this on YouTube in the next couple days. So I'll convert this to YouTube so everyone can have it. All right, guys. Thanks for chiming in.
Take care, guys.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Legacy Mutual Mortgage is an equal housing opportunity lender. The opinions expressed here do not reflect those of Legacy Mutual Mortgage.